everybody. To kind of kick this off, I'd like to tell you a little bit about AHLA's ForWard initiative. So in 2018, AHLA launched ForWard. It's Women Advancing Hospitality. And the focus was twofold. One was to recognize women in leadership in hospitality, and the second was really to build that next generation of women leaders. So that was a great start, and all of a sudden it was like, let's not do this once a year, let's do this continuously. So it evolved into an engagement platform with both online content in person, but it also went from thought leadership to networking. And then it built up even more last year with the Castile Project. Now what this is, it's a year-long training for women leaders who are advancing in hospitality. And as part of AHLA, you can nominate people to do that. And as Lowe's Hotels, we have 7 people in the project. And what they're doing... Woo! So you're networking with other female leaders for a year, talking about career progressions, learning, how do you really drive your career in, which I think is one of the best industries out there. So as a follow-on to that, at each conference now that we have, whether it was the EMEA conference in October, where we had a ForWard panel, or this conference, we want to make sure that we highlight this, because it's very important to us, and it just makes our companies and our entire industry stronger. So, today's conversation is between 2 women leaders with terrific insights to share. And for me, I've known them both for years. They impress me with what they've done, how they've done it, the energy, the passion, the power that they bring to what they've done. Just phenomenal. So we have Christy Gosho. Christy is the Chief Commercial Officer at KSL Resorts. She is going to be taking over as the lead, as the chairman of HTNG's Executive Leadership Group next year, taking over from me, so thank you, Christy. And Christy is also on the advisory of the ForWard Committee. So once again, trying to pass on her experience to our future generation of women leaders, which is phenomenal. Now, a little known fact about Christy, which I think you'll be blown away by. Kate Winslet from Titanic made her lunch every day when she was growing up. So just a little fact for you to know. All right, and really almost no introduction is needed for Vanessa. I think she is truly, literally, and figuratively the rock star, I know somebody had to say it, in our industry. So Vanessa obviously founded Enseo over 20 years ago as a chairman, but most recently has created her own record label with Higher Hill Studios. So it's a record label and an incubator for new talent of women and of people that may not get that exposure. And I'm really looking forward to when my daughters have the chance to be on your record label coming up in the next few years. Very excited by that. So please join me in welcoming Christy and Vanessa.
So, good morning, and it's great to see the turnout in the room at this point in the day. Thank you for investing the time to join us in this conversation. I'm actually quite glad that I blend in color-wise. I did try and coordinate this, but knowing the rock star that we have here in front of us, I decided to make it a little bit cooler in my own special way. So, the conversation, I think, is going to go in a lot of different directions, and I do encourage everybody here in the room to participate in this discussion. I hope it is going to be a two-way discussion. But first, just want to share a little bit with you about Vanessa's background. And she's been kind enough to provide me with her official bio here. But once I've shared this with you, we're actually going to peel this apart and really get into the nuts and bolts. So Vanessa's an entrepreneur and inventor, a writer and a singer-songwriter. That's quite some credentials. She's best known as the founder of Enseo. And if you don't know this business, go to their website. They actually have a lovely way of explaining how to say that. Because I hail from the United Kingdom, so I would naturally read it as Enseo. Enseo. And then as I went back through and I looked at how they presented it on the website, it says, pronounced as N, say, oh. So I'm like, it could be oh, we're doing great, or oh, we need to do better. So I love that part of their branding. So it says here that she's best known, as we know, as the founder of Enseo, which she and her team grew to be one of the largest out-of-home media and connected networks in the world, serving more than 100 million people annually. That's outstanding. Vanessa's talent in building world-class leadership teams focused on diversity, a culture of service, innovation through inclusion, which resulted in amazing partnerships and customer relationships. And there's a lot more for us to talk about on that point. She collaborated with the world's leading technology and content companies such as Netflix, Amazon, HBO, and Dish Networks to bring very innovative solutions to the hospitality industry. And also points out that Enseo held an exclusive contract to provide movies to the entire US Armed Forces for almost 15 years. I had no idea. That's quite incredible. So Enseo's relentless innovation has resulted in, get ready for this, 120 plus US patents, with Vanessa as lead inventor on more than half of those. Her favorite product is the MaidSafe solution, and that's for hotel workers as well as students and children in their K through 12 classrooms. And for those of you who are not from the United States and don't know what K through 12 means, that's kindergarten all the way through to what would be close to the end of our secondary school by European standards. Accolades include number 15 on, it says the Fast 100, that's Fast Company, correct? Okay. 50 fastest growing women-owned businesses, 2018 to 2020. Entrepreneur, but that was from Entrepreneur. 360 best companies, 2018 to 2020. Not to mention numerous accolades from the Inc. 500 over consecutive years. And then lastly here, Vanessa was personally honored with the Inc. 100 Female Founders Award, the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award, and Enterprising Women of the Year. And if you're not exhausted yet, like listening to this, you should be.
We are.
Because that's simply outstanding. Okay, so right now, Vanessa is doing lots of fun things with music, as we just heard, so hopefully we can unpack that a little bit more. But also spends her time raising her children, really important job, sharing stories that inspire other women, another really important job, and entrepreneurs with her articles, including her LinkedIn newsletter Unplugged. So if you haven't subscribed to that, I encourage you to do so, because it makes for a great read, and I think it's always highly topical. So the last point is that she writes music with her husband, Paul, which I think is wonderful, through the Higher Hill initiative that she's involved with, and teaches surfing clinics and trains dogs. So maybe there's something we can learn there. And I'm now going to move over, and I'm going to point something out to everybody. You notice there's 3 chairs, and there's 2 women. Okay, so I have Dan to thank for this. I said, Dan, we have a spare chair. He says, well, isn't that for the other women that need to be at the table? Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Dan. So well done to you.
Thank you for that.
There we go. It's also for the invisible supporter that we need to find. So quite a background. Help everybody here understand what was the impetus behind Enseo. What got you off your backside, so to speak, to say, I'll do something about this. There's a problem to be solved, if there was a problem.
Well, it was almost 25 years ago now, so there were different problems that needed to be solved than are available today. And we had some customers who needed some different technologies. There weren't commercially available solutions, and I liked getting in there with those Legos of technology bits and creating new things out of some technology that's readily available.
But there must have been something that irked you. Most entrepreneurs are usually so frustrated that they're willing to take the leap of faith and just dig in.
Well, I was already running an organization, a division inside a bigger company that was getting to do the new fun things. And so we were part of a really big company that was selling millions of units a year. We were a tiny sliver of that 1% of the unit volume, but we were creating over 40% of the gross profit for that company. So I was getting to do that. It was really fun. There was a big merger, and it was bought by a big public company. And suddenly we became an entertainment company, not a technology company. And that was frustrating for me because I really loved the technology aspect of it. And so I went and negotiated with the board to be able to to purchase my team, my products, and my customers and kind of spin that out, which is what became Enseo.
Fantastic. But it is a leap of faith, isn't it?
Well, it's not just leap of faith for me, it was leap of faith of the team, right? Because they were leaving a $1 billion company effectively and coming to work for a 20-something-year-old, kind of ball of fluff at the time. And that was this huge leap of faith. So the people who chose to come over with me and start this brand new adventure, it was a big deal.
What do you think it was about your leadership style, Vanessa, that gave them the confidence and the trust in you to say that that was going to be okay? Because we often see ourselves as employers. The reality is people choose to go to work, and we should invite them to work for us. Mm-hmm. And they have choices. And when people choose to follow a leader or to transfer, they are committing their career. It's an investment. I look upon it as an investment. It's a personal investment they're making. And typically they're making that investment in the person, not necessarily the organization. So walk us through your leadership and how you approached building the structure at Enseo.
I think that's a really interesting point. What's gratifying to me as a leader is not just the people that came with me to begin with, but the people who stayed with me. Because we have people at Enseo that have worked with me for over 25 years, and people who were customers and leading other technology initiatives at customer locations, other service providers, hoteliers, and so a huge part for people to trust and have faith in me to come and work with Enseo, and then choose to keep doing that. I think the reason that they were able to do that was, I gave them the place to be themselves. I show up pretty authentically. I don't have a good filter, as many of you know. What you see is what you get. I say things that are not always politically correct, but
fantastic,
honest. Gets me in trouble sometimes. But with the customer, with my team, they love that. They value that because they know what you see is what you get. If I'm really excited, I'm really excited. I do not do nonchalant well at all. The day we were in the Netflix meeting and they said that yes, they would let us work, I literally stood up at the meeting and went, yes! And all of the guys at Netflix turned and looked, and I was like, what, you don't know that I know that this is a big deal? This is a big deal! And it was fun.
That's wonderful. I love the transparency there and the authenticity is so important, isn't it? Because if you look at how we feed the pipeline of our future industry, mm-hmm. hospitality, there's a cohort, whatever label we put on them, of young people coming into the industry who expect that authenticity. And they need that from the leaders that they engage with. So to that point, how do we help people mm-hmm. to uncover their authentic self? What do we need to peel back to get to that place?
Grace and mercy are really important. Because when nobody's perfect. None of us are perfect. None of us make perfect decisions all the time. So the freedom to fail is critical. So we have a saying at Enseo and that you have to be safe enough to do something dangerous. Because to innovate and to fix problems and to acknowledge problems, to celebrate problems, because once you've found them, then you can fix them and make them better, whether that's a technology problem or an organizational problem. And to do that, you have to have a safe space. Mm-hmm. And that's the critical piece. You have to have a safe space. You have to be allowed to be human. And that means not always being perfect every day. And so I think that's critical.
Yeah, that's right. I think about that every morning when I try to put my mascara on. So it doesn't have to be perfect every day, Christy. Nobody's going to judge you based on that. Anyway, different problems, different day. So as you look back over the course of everything that you've achieved with Enseo, what would you say, building on perhaps places where we could have changed things or done things differently? What would you wished you had known or done differently in that journey that helps you going forward?
Well, certainly starting a business right before 9/11 that was focused on hospitality and VOD and airplanes, probably not the best choice. Trying to do my first M&A transaction on the day the market crashed in 2008. Also, I wish I had known that ahead of time, for sure. But in the go forward strategy, what I think I wish I had known was if I'd had more believe it or not, if I'd had more confidence in myself to just quietly understand that if I presented an authentic opportunity for people to come and work for me, especially going after really, really talented leaders, I still say the best leadership team in the industry, and most of those people far outclassed me in their experience and their capabilities and their education. The powerhouses that I surrounded myself were incredible. Many of those were women, and women that could have had some of the biggest jobs in the country, but because I gave them a place to be themselves, to be a mom, to be a wife, to just be authentically a woman, not have to pretend to be a man to take their job, I got people that were way above my weight class.
That's brilliant. So, don't pretend to be a man. Let's talk a little bit about that, because you and I had a quick little sort of catch up at the back of the room, and I said there's this word I hear a lot, and it's that word equality and equal. And I think, I wish we could strike that from the vocabulary.
Right?
It's one of those words where I actually don't want to be equal on the same terms. I just don't, because I'm me, and you're you. And I have a unique set of needs and circumstances, and you have a unique set of circumstances, as does everybody else in this room. What we need is just more opportunity, and that's across the board. So the focus should be on achieving that as a goal versus trying to do things in a certain way. So let's talk a little bit about getting to increase opportunity. So I've got some stats I'm going to share. And Vanessa knows that I'm going to make some, perhaps a pointed comment back to the company that she currently sits on the board for, but it's a reality that we face today, is that there's still not the diversity in the key leadership teams of major hospitality companies or solution providers that we'd like to see. I'm not going to say should be, because I think we both share the position that every organization should choose the best person for the job. Just the pool of choice needs to be broadened in order that we can make those choices. So, I'm going to start with a statement before I get into some of these stats from a gentleman called Tom Peters. Anybody remember him? He wrote In Search of Excellence, and then back in, I think, 2004, this book called Reimagine. He's still on the speaking circuit, but there was something he said back in 2004 when I watched him. I was actually in Dubai, and it struck a chord with me, and I have never forgotten it. And it was this simple question. He said, does your board or leadership team look like your customers? Meaning the mix, the composition, the skill sets, right, their worldly experience. Does it look like the customers you're seeking to serve? And I thought, that's just brilliant. If I just kept that one question in my head going through time, then hopefully what comes out of that is more balanced teams, greater success. Now, that was 18 years ago. We're still having this conversation. That was 18 years ago. The good news is it's come up again, but I'm going to share with you from the Castell report that Dan just mentioned, that 2022 Women in Hospitality Leadership, they quoted, enabling women to serve as leaders not only doubles the talent pool available, giving diverse companies more and better opportunities, it also aligns these companies with their customers, markets, and workforce. So the point is, we know it. We need to accept it. And yet, so I looked at 9 companies. I just looked at their websites. So nothing I'm going to share is proprietary information. It's in the public domain. I'm not sharing it to be difficult or picking anyone out. I simply thought of brands, looked them up, and had a look at their leadership teams. And of course, some of them structure their businesses differently, so I tried to look at the most senior members on their website. So here we go. IHG, 10 total on their ELG, 3 are women, so 30%. Hilton, 9 total, 2 women, 22%. Hyatt, 9 total, 3 women, 33 in the third, recurring. Choice, 16, 7 women, 43.75. So standout result there for Choice. Wyndham, 12 total, 3 women, 25%. Host, 8 total, 2 women, 25%. Four Seasons, 12 total, 3 women, 25%. Highgate, 7 total, 0 women, 0%. Aimbridge, 14 total, 2 women, 14.2%. I'm going to hold up the mirror. Carousel Resorts, we just have 24, 5 women, 21%. We still have work to go, so I count myself in that. So Enseo, 30% female on Enseo's leadership team today. So what's happening there, Vanessa? It's all about honest conversations.
Some of the honest conversation wasn't necessarily planned, but well, it took me a long time, years and years and years, to build the leadership team that I built. When I left Enseo, before I left Enseo, at the end of the year last year, we had almost 70% women on our leadership team, including Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Legal, Chief Financial Officer, Chief Information Officer, and the Chief Executive Officer. So it wasn't, and HR, and the head of HR. I forgot that one when I gave that to you. And so it wasn't that we intentionally set out to get more women. We truly set out to put the best people in the positions. But what I did was I found the best people I could find, and then I created positions around those people. So it was a very different way of going after that. And I think that it was so intentional. It was a very intentional set of conversations. Really important to that were also the men on our team, because the men on our team are hugely supportive of the women on the team. And we had, everyone was supportive of each other. David Simpson sits here today, has been a huge supporter of mine as a customer, as a vendor partner, and then we argued with each other for about 1.5 years, 2 years, maybe longer, before he came on the Enseo team, because we weren't sure that our friendship was worth sacrificing for us to work together. But it turns out that we survived our friendship, even working together for years. But without David's support and the rest of the support of the whole team, we wouldn't have been able to have as many women in that spot. Fast forward, very short period of time, focusing on the best financial benefit to the company is important, and it's important to new ownership. I don't know that the diversity aspect of the business is as high on the priority list, right? I mean, different priorities are being focused on, and not that that's good or bad. It's just different focuses. As a board member, I'm sure you can imagine I'm pushing really hard to continue to reinforce our diversity and inclusion efforts.
So I think it's a fascinating approach you took, and to a certain degree quite ballsy, actually. I'm going to use that term. Am I allowed to use that term? I'm going to use that term. It's, I think that there's a challenge, isn't there, between in the pursuit of profit and winning brands. The bottom line is that every organization is being judged, and we're being judged by the future talent that we want to encourage to join us. We're being judged by the consumers of our products and services, and that's only going to continue to grow. So we really do need to check ourselves a little bit and have this type of conversation, and see if we can balance, how do you better balance the needs for profitability, also make sure we've got the right people in the right jobs on time, at the right time, equally letting people go on time, something else that we need to learn as leaders, and being able to confidently speak to that.
But I would say, I would challenge, I do not think that diversity and profitability are inversely proportional. I believe quite the opposite. I absolutely 100% believe, and have empirical evidence, 23 years of evidence to show that you can use diversity for the benefit of your organization, for the benefit of your profitability, for the benefit of your innovation. It makes a stronger team. It makes a more profitable team because everybody cares. When people are valued and they feel valued in a way that's even more than the market would traditionally, or that they have seen value before, when they feel truly valued, they do more. And they do more than their 10%. They care about the benefit to the whole business. And the long-term profitability and innovation of the business rises and is so much better for it. So I would challenge anyone that says that profitability and diversity are inversely proportional. I do not think they are. I think that they are directly proportional.
Fantastic. So then, I feel like it's hard talk. So then, why are we still having this conversation today? Why do we still have empty chairs in our boardrooms? Or should I say, boardrooms that look similar versus complementary? because we know complementary teams work and similar ones is the easy route, but not necessarily as successful. And going to go to a couple of stats, and then we're going to talk about what is it going to take to make this change, because everybody needs to commit to that, of course. So just picking up on some of the data points in the Castell report that I referenced earlier. So typical to see women in HR roles, sales and marketing, but we have very few in the CTO, CIO roles. So those in the audience, you do have to do, this is a little bit of audience participation. If you are just generally classified as a CTO or a CIO, can you just stand up for me, please? If you hold that designation, 1, 2.
David.
We have 2. This is interesting.
Stand up.
Don't worry, just if you hold that designation, can you stand up? Okay, actually we don't have many in the room at all. That's interesting, but we didn't have any women.
Was there one? Sorry.
I can't see.
It's hard for us to see
It's
from
behind you, behind the light. Thank you. Okay, so do we have 4? So we're still at 25%. 6. Okay, so it's even
one
worse.
of 6.
All right. not so great. And it probably, and that sort of supports, and by the way, we all have sisters, mothers, daughters, so this conversation becomes very real when you start to look at the opportunities for own children or family or wives. CIOs, so in terms of men to women, 1 female CIO to 19.8 male counterparts. CTO, 1 male to 13 female counterparts. CEO here said 1 woman to 16.2, 1 male to 16.2 counterparts. So,
and the CEO numbers are just so bad, they don't even publish them.
And I know you have some particular thoughts on this. So.
I do. So I looked at, as we were talking about this conversation, the S&P 500, I got to meet the new CEO, the second woman CEO in the history of the New York Stock Exchange a few weeks ago. And she gave us some statistics that were striking. On the S&P 500, clearly 500 companies, they have just reached the number 30 threshold of 30 women CEOs on the S&P 500. So it's 8%. 6%, sorry. And then the Fortune 500 is a little bit better, and it's at 8%. But on the S&P 500, while you had 6% women CEOs, only 1% of the equity in those businesses were held by women. So there are several layers of issues there in those statistics. So point 2.
So why?
So why? You have to have a funnel. Right? I mean, we all know about sales funnel. We're all here for opportunity. We're here for talking to our customers and figuring out what's the next new product to build. But all of that building new business is about a funnel. Have we built a funnel of talent that is a diverse funnel of talent? And I think the answer is still no. Right? We still have challenges with women and girls, bringing them into STEM, mathematics, science, technology, engineering. We still need more work to do on building that funnel. And one of the things that we did is whenever there was an open position, we had to have, instead of just finding, because we all have friends, right? We all know and have friends. So instead of just hiring your friend, which is typically your buddy, and to come in and fill that role, making sure that you did the work, not to hire a woman for a role, to hire a diverse candidate for a role. I'm not saying that. I'm saying actually don't do that. What I'm saying is if you widen the net when you're hiring for positions, whether it's beginning positions, manager positions, senior executive positions, if you widen the net to make sure that you have diverse candidates in your pool, which right now you have to work really hard for. I'm not saying it's easy. So work harder to have a diverse net to bring into the interview process. They have to be qualified, and then hire the best person for the job. If you have more diverse talent on your team, as you promote, as you educate, as you encourage, you will end up with more senior leadership that is also diverse.
Right, so I think there's a few pieces that we should talk about then that come into, you mentioned, the funnel.
Okay.
So now I'm going to dig into my inner marketer or marketeer. That when we reach out to consumers, we don't offer everybody the same proposition. We segment our audiences. We personalize our communications and our outreach. And even if you think about, prescriptive, it's not prescriptive, predictive analytics, and we looked at a lot of AI earlier, I think it plays into this. We do things very differently for each individual, and we might differentiate across the different lines of business in the estate. So is it fair to say that there's an opportunity for us when we think about how we write job descriptions, how we go to market and look for those candidates? It was actually Jeff B., Nolan CEO. He brought this up actually in a recent conversation. He said, he said, we've been trying to understand why we can't get the pool. He said, so I took some time to think about the recruiters that we were using. Did they understand how to engage with the audience that we were trying to encourage? He said, and then I took a look at our job descriptions, and I said, is the content and the way this is written, everything from the language to the perks and the benefits, come back to that predictive analysis about, matching people to benefits, just like we do in CRM. He said, I realized that we were actually cutting off opportunity at source. So what are your thoughts on that, and how can we innovate?
I do think there are recruiters that specialize in diverse candidates. I was recently sourced, I was called by a recruiter to interview for the position of being the CEO of Martin Guitars.
Nice.
Yes, but yeah, it was actually really cool. It was super cool. And it was because they were specifically looking for people who were doing things differently. Wasn't they were looking for diverse candidates, or even me as a Latina. They were just looking for people who did things differently. So they went to the technology space and they saw some, rock and roll PR piece or something that was done. But the way that they very intentionally spoke to me as a candidate about what was important to me, about EQ, about how I interacted with my team, how I cared about my customers, how I chose what innovations to do. They had an interview process that was the most inclusive interview process I have ever seen. Now, let's be really clear, it was conducted by two men who were white men who were in their 50s. So this doesn't have to be...
But the intent was good.
No, I'm saying they did a fabulous job,
Yeah.
a spectacular job. I'm saying you can't choose what recruiters would work well by looking at them. It's the intent and how they do their job. We then reused those same recruiters as we were looking for other positions in the business as well. But it was about inclusivity. It was about communication skills. It was about EQ. You don't get to the point of getting the interview unless you have the technical qualifications, right? What's the education that you need? I mean, the technical qualifications, that's just a yes or no. That doesn't really matter, because if you're there, then you've got those qualifications. But do we want you on our team? Are you going to help us take things to the next level? It's about all of these other factors. And when you put all those other factors on the table, I think that's when naturally you'll see some real lift in hiring more diverse candidates.
Yeah, I would agree, 100%. It's interesting, though, that we don't necessarily apply the same sort of CRM logic.
Right.
When we think about even something as our benefit set, because the HR teams, the intent is there, but what motivates me to even get that pull going, what motivates me to respond to a role that could either be published or via an outreach from a recruiter is based on if they understand what my needs are likely to be.
Yes.
And is that represented in the materials that they put in front of me? Because to my earlier point, people choose to go to work, they invest their careers in organizations. We have to earn that.
Absolutely.
So, I think there's some work that we can do there to leverage all of the technology. Let's start learning more about the behavioral triggers and what's needed from all manner of audiences and the employment scene. Because when we talk about diversity and inclusion, we're really talking about everybody. We just happen to be talking about half the population right now.
Little over
that
half.
comes under, a little over half,
Little over
that comes
half.
under, a title of female. So switching it up a little bit, and it's related. So innovation is often dedicated to our products and services, and not always to the development of our talent pool, right? How do we take not only a more of an innovative approach to recruit, but how we think about the needs of our organization 10 years from now? And I challenge everybody in this room, if we learned nothing from Ian's presentation, take with you that we have to be thinking further out into the future. And there's this concept, he didn't bring it up, it's called episodic futures thinking. And you might want to Google this, but I had the opportunity to read a book on this, and it simply changed my world. And it teaches you how to think about all the triggers of that are in life, what we see, the influences, behavioral, the most minor of behavioral changes going on, and generational differences. And if you extrapolate that and then work back, it's odd, but you have to take those, see how they might be amplified into the future, and then you work it back to today. Not only does it build resiliency, because you kind of already thought about all of the great and the not so great things that might happen, but you start to realize how you need to change now to be relevant to your audiences and to bring in the future of the workforce. And it's not easy to do. And a good example of this, and I'm going to share it with you, right? You may not know, but doctors can today prescribe food to people who live in food deserts. And it is covered by the insurance companies. Most people don't know that in this room, I'm sure. But it is a thing. And if I take that and say, okay, now I can extrapolate that, we've got a challenge on the horizon with mental wellness, we know, and that will manifest itself. And we have an industry here that's in the business of service and taking care of people. What if, put a few things together, the evolution of the OTAs and those other 2 points, could we ever imagine a day where you go to Expedia or Booking.com and there's a checkbox that says, I want to pay with points, I want to use my insurance for a mental wellness stay? Because the insurance companies have recognized that there's an opportunity now to address that through respite and rest, and then they tie that in to a process with some of the world's largest distributors of hospitality products. I use that as an extreme example, right, of innovative thinking, but now bring that and you say all the way back to recruitment. What does recruitment need to look like or even diverse teams need to look like 5 years from now? And what do we need to do today, tomorrow, to get to that outcome? It's a big KPI, and everybody in the room needs to meet it. So what do you think would be the 1, 2, 3, Vanessa? Keeping in mind your vast experience, so think about all the wins.
I don't know that I could do a 1, 2, 3, but
Then do 10.
but what I think we could do is, I think about our success with young people. Because there seems to be this understanding that millennials don't stay at jobs and they don't have a lot of, they just don't stay for a long time. I found that completely to be not true. We hired a group of young women, interns, right out of college, and they're still with us today. And the reason that they're still with us today is that we didn't follow a prescriptive role of how their job journey had to go. I intentionally, I was given a job where I was able to do whatever, like I could take a bigger job and I could take a different thing and I was able to do all kinds of different things in the same organization. So I took that idea and I used it with my team. And so we had these fantastic young people, and if they wanted to do PR and then graphics and then website design and then coding, we let them succeed in different ways and jump within the organization in non-traditional ways, feeding their need for change, for evolving who they were. And we were able to get a tremendous amount of loyalty from those people, and of course also build up more diverse candidates in our pool who kept being, now they are doing more and they're managing people, and but giving opportunity. And then even once you have people on your team, not saying, okay, well now you have a 5% raise and you get to jump up one rung on this one ladder. No, people can jump ladders, people can do more, they can do different things. Give them an opportunity to be human, to be imperfect. Maybe they will surprise you and take the tools from one area and be really successful in another area.
It's brilliant. So we, in a way, should not equate experience to ability. Okay, so we have about 3 minutes left. I just want to quickly touch upon, is it High Hill Studios?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that endeavor and why you went that route and what we can expect coming from your new business entity over the next 12 months.
Well, the Higher Hill Studios really started here, actually, because we started doing concerts at the trade shows. One of the songs that we sang was Higher Hill, that was written by Peyton Wimmer, our Chief Cultural Officer. And it was really a song about choosing, even then there were, through adversity, to be at a higher place and to choose to see things differently, and then to choose to move in a positive direction, mindfully. And so, having had the exit of selling the business, I recorded a record with my husband, found out that the only industry that has less women in it than the hospitality technology industry is the music industry. There were no women. And there needs to be an incubator. And so I'm passionate about intellectual property, and the songwriting stuff was lots of fun. And so we put together an incubator studio for women and diverse artists to be able to have their voices heard. And that's evolved quite dramatically recently. Some really exciting entertainers and celebrities are interested in kind of promoting that. So we have a fund that's being raised to help really push having more women and diverse voices in the music and creative industries.
Yeah, phenomenal. So can we expect another gig anytime soon? Because when I was snooping around on you, and I discovered that not only did you used to have a band with your former associates.
Yes.
I don't know if the band's still together, and if you have a band, the band shot, we probably should have put that up. Is the band still
the
together?
merch shop. We do play sometimes. We haven't played as often. Ryan Landis, one of our great vocalists that was in the band with us. Corey Rhodes, our new CEO, really important reason that we hired Corey is that he plays bass guitar. It was certainly a part of his interview process. And bass guitarist, that's diversity right there. So that qualified him. But yes, we have some upcoming shows that we're excited to be working on.
There's a few big shows coming up, Kevin. Maybe we need to book a headline act, okay? So I'm going to open it up to any questions that you may have. Great. Mr. Horner.
Uncle Ted.
First up.
In Australia, one of the two leading political parties decided 10 years ago to reach a quota. And they set a quota of 50% of their parliamentarians would be women. That has been reached. Sadly, the other Conservative side is a long way behind. So my question to you is, with such low percentage of women in senior management, are we now thinking about the time to start thinking about mandating that a percentage of women should be in senior positions? Because after all, you are 50% of the population or pretty close, and those numbers are very, very poor. So what do we got to do? Do we have to start legislating or mandating to get the numbers up? Because if we rely on men alone, we'll never get there.
It's starting to happen, right? There's new legislation. California, for example, has legislated the percentage of boards that need to be women. There's not a lot of legislation happening there. I think it's going to be a corporate by corporate opportunity, and this is where corporations have an opportunity to lead. What do you want to have your executive team representing the customer base of who are your heads in beds?
Yeah. It's a great question, Ted, so thank you for bringing it up. I have a very strong feeling on this. It's a personal opinion that I'll share, but I'm not a huge supporter of quotas.
Nor am I.
For the unfortunate outcomes that are associated to that, which is, and I am living in California, so it's one of those states that has moved to put a quota in place, is I would like to be in my role and at the table or leading an organization because I earned my place. I got there through my hard work. So, unfortunately, when we have quotas, you then hear the consequence. Well, they're only here because of the number. They need to make their numbers. She's only here because the state legislated X. That doesn't do anybody any good.
Well, and you're not valuable at that point. If you're just there because you're a number, you're not valuable, you're not listened to, you don't have influence, we need to choose to do it a different way.
Yeah, so hopefully we don't have to get to that point, and that companies can step up and put appropriate programs in place, and we can all work hard to nurture the next generations for our industry and for all industries. But it starts at education, it starts at an early age. Like I said before, many of us have children, we have sisters, mothers, wives. Ask them what needs to be done to make this possible too. I mean, ask my daughter, she tells me.
Yes.
But so does my son. So in all of this, I do want to point this out because I don't want us to miss something else that's equally important.
Yeah.
I don't want to be sitting here 10 years from now talking about the issue we have with young men because they're lost and they don't know their role and they don't know their place because the pendulum swung so far, so extreme, and we had to go to quotas and we had to force the agenda. That's not good either. So we need to manage this, and we need balance and do what's the right thing to do based on the situation, the person, the talent in front of you. But let's focus on that word opportunity and start at the age of 2 and 3 and 4 and build from there. Do we have any other questions? We're out of time? Okay, I'm being given that. So thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you to our audience. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.